While Hillary Clinton and Tim Geithner negotiate with the Chinese, the story of the blind activist that has left the U.S. Embassy seems to be changing by the hour. Good morning, I'm Rolf Winkler, joined today by Market Watch columnist David Widener. Hey David, Rolf. How you doing? Good. We're going to jump right over to Andrew Brown, who's on the ground in Beijing, the Wall Street Journal's bureau chief, who's been following this by the hour. Andrew, give us the latest.
Well, the latest is that Chen Guangcheng is adamant that he does not want to stay in China, that he was put under pressure from the U.S. Embassy to leave on Wednesday night. He now wants to get out of China, and he wants, with his family, and to go into asylum at the United States. The United States ambassador to Beijing, Gary Locke, is absolutely firm on this. He gave a press conference. He said there was no pressure on him whatsoever to leave. He understood the stark choices, as he put it, that were in front of him, and he made the decision to go.
What were those stark choices? It sounded like his family was being threatened? And so,
well, he's saying, what he's saying to associates is that the Chinese had threatened to beat his wife, even beat his wife to death. There were reports that they would send his wife and his child back to Shandong province, where they had come from, and where, of course, they'd spent years and years being intimidated, beaten, put under extra-legal detention by local authorities, thugs, really. And those were the choices that were facing him.
You know, Andrew, I was scanning the headlines from around the world on this story today, and almost all of them cast the U.S. role in this in a negative light. That this is a big blow to Obama, terrible for our foreign relations, and Hillary Clinton, our Secretary of State. Is it possible that we're misreading this? I mean, we hear two different sides of the story, and is it possible that Mr. Chen has kind of set us up in a way, pushing this international incident right on the eve of this visit?
Right, while Hillary Clinton and Tim Geithner are there negotiating with the Chinese.
Well, it's certainly the case that the U.S. side is now scrambling to try to sort of get on top of this political and public relations a disaster, really. Sure, they had this guy who it was all smiles, it was all happiness. He wants to leave. We've got a great solution. He's going to go to a college in China. He's going to pursue his legal studies. People talked about it as being the new model. This is what would you might expect would happen to dissidents were they in the future to come into the U.S. Embassy. And now the entire deal has unraveled, and frankly, nobody has any idea how to get him out of it. Can they go back now? Can the U.S. side go back now to the Chinese and say, okay, actually, we want to try to get him and his family back into the United States? And if they did that, what would the response be from the Chinese government? It's a mess right now.
Can we step back a second and let's ask? We've got a great image that shows just how inspirational Mr. Chen is to the Chinese people. Tell us, JR, if you could throw that up there in a minute, I think. JR, Andrew, can you tell us about who Chen is and why he's such an inspiration?
Well, he's blind. He's incredibly brave, and of course he's most famous for defending or for exposing forced abortions in the Shandong countryside. He spent years in jail on trumped-up charges, according to his supporters, and over the last couple of years he's been holed up in his village home, surrounded by thugs, regularly beaten. His daughter's had trouble going to school. He's become a symbol of resistance to the government in China, and he is in many ways, to his supporters and to many people outside China, he's a hero.
Were the United States, obviously, let's jump over again to Hillary Clinton and Tim Geithner in China and what they're negotiating. There have been some progress in those negotiations. Are these two things related? We resolved this situation in a way that apparently appeased the Chinese in some way, and has that been helpful for those negotiations?
Well, certainly that was the assumption, that you'd get a deal and that would then clear the way for a very smooth set of negotiations, mainly, broadly speaking, on economic issues. At least that was the focus of the talks today. We're not sure whether or not the subject of Chen Guangcheng came up in the discussions today, which were very focused on issues around, boosting Chinese consumption, doing something to, move China away from an export-led, investment-led model model to a consumption-led model, which of course would be good for the United States, great for U.S. exporters. At the very beginning of the session, Hillary Clinton made a very general statement about U.S. support for human rights and how human rights in China would lead to a stronger China, and that would therefore strengthen the bilateral U.S.-China relationship. But we're not sure whether the Chen's case came up in any meaningful way in the discussions.
David, I want to get you in here talking about these economic issues and how the Chinese, we're encouraging the Chinese to encourage more consumption in their country, get away from the export-led model. Is this really as good as we think for the American economy, in the sense that if we allow them to raise the value of their currency, create a social safety net, create a consumption-based society, does that benefit? I mean, it's been great for us so far. We give them paper, they give us goods.
I think it's better for the global economy and therefore better for our economy, because China is basically playing on an uneven playing field that they have created. So I think in the end, we're talking about these talks are just as important as any cause, I think, that Mr. Chen may be trying to bring attention to, and that is economic prosperity for China, a stronger middle class, the less of a need to keep these currency controls on, is going to do more for the Chinese and for the people there than any sort of incident at the embassy right now. I think we can't. The other one, the international incident might be the more flashy story right now. But the talks about bringing some sort of normalization to the global economy are just as important.
Great, great. Andrew, thanks so much. We'll be following this story all day on WSJ.com. We'll have updates for you. Stick with us. Right now, we're going to move right over to markets. We got Chris Dietrich over here. We're going to talk to Chris. Come on in. Tell us what's going on this morning. How the future's looking.
Gentlemen, well, all eyes this morning were on a week.